What's up, A to Z Sports Live on a Monday morning. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. Sam Phelan is back from Indianapolis after his week at the NFL Combine. And there's so many things to talk about this week. It's going to be a very fast week, I feel like, which is good because a week from today, Sam, the legal tampering negotiating window, or whatever they call it now in the NFL, will be open. So a week from today, we will start to see deals fly in left and right for free agents signing with new teams all across the league. We do have some news in the wide receiver market this morning that is going to be interesting and something to watch to see how that impacts the Tennessee Titans, and we'll update that after the official open of the show. But going to have a great show today. Sam, you spent, 6 days, better half of 5.5, 6 days in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine, and the results present the Titans with a coin flip to make at the top of the draft. We'll figure out which side of the coin you guys are on for the Titans in this NFL draft process. But welcome in, Sam. We'll get to that. So maybe some new trends and your biggest takeaway from the Combine this past week. Zach is out this morning. So that means I get to do the age game. I get to figure out who I want to test everybody at with the age game. So Sam, welcome in. I know you're fighting through. You're playing a little injured, a little hurt, as a lot of the guys at the Combine came back dealing with a little throat soreness or something like that. Little stuff going on there up in Indy. But Sam, welcome back, and let's have a good show today.
Yeah. This is a flu game for me a little bit. Hopefully not the.
It's not spring break if you're not a little bit sick afterwards, right?
Right. Yeah. So we're fighting through it today. I'm still feeling the effects of, like you said, 6 days down in Indianapolis with a lot of long nights and a lot of early mornings. It was quite the week, and probably going to be a busy week this week ahead. We have so much to talk about. We have a lot to go over. Excited to be here with you guys and excited for a great show, which is why everybody watching needs to share the show. If you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit the share button at the bottom of your screen. If you're watching on YouTube, take that YouTube link, send it to a friend, a group chat, a Titans fan or football fan in your life. You can post it on X or whatever you want to do with it. Just get people into the show, get people involved this morning. That's the best way to support us. Spread the word. Get the word out for the A to Z Sports family and continue growing before we kick things off here on a Monday morning. Not used to a Monday morning show, but excited for it.
Yeah, well, let's get going officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports, powered as always by the BetMGM app. I'm Austin Stanley. He is Sam Phelan, our Titans reporter for A to Z Sports.com, and we are Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, going live weekday mornings at 8 Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links to the show segment by segment on our Twitter X timeline. Also hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more great Titans content. We got to thank our sponsors because they make it happen for us, and they help out all of you, like Wilson County Hyundai. WilsonCountyHyundai.com is where to go to make them a part of your new car buying process. The Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Get better with Farm Bureau Health Plans at fbhp.com/ATOZ. And Krebs Kubota, an elite Kubota dealer with 3 great locations across the mid-state, Columbia, Franklin, and Murfreesboro. They are all live online at KrebsKubota.com. So Sam, we've got a lot of combine results to get into. A tough decision with the Titans at the top of the draft. Their first and second round picks are going to be very interesting to see where they are trending. But officially 1 week before the free agency world gets set aflame in the NFL, and a big contract being agreed to this morning, just as we're getting set to start the show. Mike Evans, wide receiver, is going to stay in Tampa with the Bucs. A 2-year deal, $52 million, with 35 of that guaranteed. So he's probably right there near the top of the wide receiver free agent market. We know T. Higgins is currently franchise tagged in Cincinnati on a 1-year, $21 million deal. But 2 years, an average of 26 per. Sam, is 26 per year for Mike Evans a win or a loss for the Titans in the free agency market?
Neutral. I don't know. I mean, I think that's about expected. Mike Evans is a top receiver in the game, probably one of the most underrated receivers in the game, a future Hall of Famer. a no doubt future Hall of Famer. And by the way, if you were to go and look at Mike Evans' statistics in his career, and then just be somewhat generous and give him like 4 more years of relatively solid production, you're looking at him joining an elite group of like the best 5 wide receivers of all time in yards, catches, touchdowns, all of these things. Like he has had such a slept on career, and he's still doing it. The difference between Mike Evans this season and DeAndre Hopkins last season is that Mike Evans has recent success. He is still doing 1,000 yards year after year after year. Hopkins had come off an injury and 2 years of kind of not playing a full season, trying to figure out what he still had in the tank. So I think this is a fair deal for the Bucs. I think it makes total sense for them to bring him back. I think it's, pays Mike Evans pretty well. So I don't know if I have strong opinions about whether this is a win or a loss. This feels like where the market value probably should have been.
Well, and Josh Keepo at A2ZSports.com did our top 105 contract projections. You can find that still pinned on our homepage, A2ZSports.com. Top 105 free agency contract projections. He had Mike Evans at 3 years for 75. So he was literally $1 million off of the average annual value. So if Josh had him at 25 mil, Evans gets an average of 26 over 2 years. I think for me, Mike Evans is probably the most established, best wide receiver resume that was going into free agency. Sure, he's around 30, so that you have to play that into it. But the fact that is under $30 million a year, I think if you're the Titans, you say, well, that could have been worse, right? It could have been worse for the Titans. Is it a win? I'm not quite sure. I'm kind of where you are with a no answer of probably.
But I mean, who gets $30 million a year at wide receiver?
Tyreek Hill.
Sure, but that's Tyreek Hill.
Justin Jefferson's probably going to.
AJ didn't get $30 million.
Yeah, but that was also now 2 years ago, right? So sure. I'm thinking like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, when these guys get paid, it's going to be well over $30 million a year, close to like 35 with those guys. So Mike Evans, I think his age plays a factor in that. So not a bad development at the wide receiver market for the Tennessee Titans. So we'll kind of see how that continues to play out. But Sam, man, NFL Combine Week, I know you're feeling it after a long 5 to 6 days in Indy, but overall, how was it? How was it for the Titans as you were watching drills, going through and interviewing players, listening to all the chatter around the Tennessee Titans? How do you feel coming away from a week in Indianapolis at the Combine?
Busy. I mean, it lived up to the hype of what I expected. The Combine is an interesting place where there's always somebody to talk to, always a piece or a nugget of information out there, and always prospects to get to know. I do feel like the Combine as a whole perhaps gets overblown by media and fans in general about what it actually means for the NFL draft. I think this is as much a production for the league to introduce fans to the next wave of players, more than it is for teams to really like make adjustments to their draft board. But the conversations that happen during the Combine are very real. Teams are talking, coaches are talking, GMs are talking, everybody's talking to media and to players and to agents. And so the information that goes around usually has a lot of truth to it. I'm not sure anything from the Combine left me feeling like, oh, well, this completely shifts my perception of the draft and like the way that the draft board plays out. But I do think you get a very real feel for how teams are looking at players, not necessarily because of how somebody tests, but because of the information that you get.
Yeah, the conversation that's going around rather than the testing or what's being confirmed. Because I saw Jim Nagy, who runs the Senior Bowl, who said, all right, it's the NFL Combine. All it does is make you go back to the tape. Do the test results match the tape? Or did a particular player just do a really good job of training for these tests and come away with a quicker time in the agility cone drills or whatever it might be? All those type of things, right? Did they game the system to improve their stock?
Yep. No, and that's why I am in support of Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. and anybody who didn't test at the Combine. if you don't test and you're in that top tier, I don't blame you whatsoever. You don't really have anything to gain from testing, right? You can come out as Malik Neighbors and run a 4.3, feel great about it. And it doesn't really tell teams anything that they didn't already know about you. The same thing can be said for Marvin Harrison Jr. Honestly, Marvin Harrison Jr. could really only hurt himself if he comes out, because he's probably wouldn't have run as fast as Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors, and obviously Xavier Worthy's and some of these guys, which then maybe hurts him slightly. But what you can do is, if you're that guy in the second round, the third round, if you are Xavier Worthy, who's somewhere around the 10th best wide receiver on most big boards, who comes out, breaks a record, you do make teams go, wait a minute, do we need to take another look at this guy and see how his speed is going to play? So you can make a name for yourself. You can turn some heads. You can get people back to your tape. But Austin, absolutely, the tape that you put on in the fall is going to determine where you're drafted. That's going, and your interviews as well. That is where your draft stock comes from. Teams don't really look and say, oh, 4.2, that means we got to jump you up 5 spots. It might make them go, are we missing something here? And that's the benefit for a player that's further down the draft board.
So now we get to the Titans, who have the 7th overall pick in the first round, the 38th overall pick in their second round. And the decision to make, it felt like when Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan talked to the media at the Combine that you were a part of, Sam, we all walked away from that. You literally walked away from it going like, this team's going to draft a receiver at 7. And then you see all these offensive linemen go through their interviews and testing yesterday, and you're like, wow, there's a lot of good offensive linemen in this class. And then you see Worthy run 4.2, flat. And you see all these other fast guys. What, a total of 9 receivers were under 4.4 in the 40-yard dash, including a guy like Ladd McConkey that I don't think was expecting to be that type of speed. You see a lot of really athletic, explosive guys on the offensive line. And so that makes you think, all right, what's the best way the Titans can game this? And so let's just get to our question out of the gates this morning, and we'll get to some of our other content that we've got prepared to help us with this question. It's, what's the better NFL draft combo for the Titans? Do you go wide receiver in round 1, O-line in round 2, or do you flip it and go O-line in round 1 and wide receiver in round 2? So which coin flip, which Titans combo is better for the Titans? Wide receiver in round 1, O-line in round 2, or is it O-line round 1, wide receiver round 2? We'll get to all of your comments here in a second, but first, Krebs Kubota. They are Middle Tennessee's preferred equipment provider and elite Kubota dealer in Middle Tennessee. They have the best equipment in the industry. They have the best warranties in the industry and the best customer service, because Krebs Kubota is a family-owned and operated company that puts their name on their chest, on their sleeve, on their back, and on their reputation to make sure that you have exactly what you need and know how to use it and know how to get those projects done around your home, your property, your business, done the right way, efficiently and safely with all of their Kubota equipment. An elite Kubota dealer, they've got the best warranty, so you can't beat that, but the best equipment and the best service, that's a 1-2 punch that you cannot overlook when looking to buy a piece of equipment or just rent that equipment for a weekend project. Spring is right around the corner. We're about less than a week away from that spring forward on your clocks, which means outside time is coming. So get prepared at Krebs Kubota, their website, KrebsKubota.com.
Today's show is powered by BetMGM. BetMGM is the king of sports books. We are in March. That's a great betting month. Everybody knows how much fun it is to bet in March. So use the bonus code ATOZ Sports when you sign up with BetMGM and get up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. That's up to $1,500. Place your bet, and even if you lose, that money goes back into your account with a second chance to win big because you used the king of sports books. It's BetMGM and BetMGM.com.
All right, so Sam, I'm going to send you to the chat because I'm curious about the initial answers to the question, and then we'll see if people can change their tunes based on us going through some of these NFL Combine results. But the coin flip the Titans have is, we all know that they have 2 massive needs on the roster, both on the offense, whether it's offensive linemen or whether it is the wide receiver group. But what's the better combination for the Tennessee Titans with their first and second pick? Do you go wide receiver round 1 and then offensive lineman round 2? Or do you flip it and go O-line round 1 and wide receiver round 2? So, Sam, I'll send you to the comments, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. We need more likes as well. So while you guys are sending in those comments, please hit that thumbs up button where you're watching. Sam, what are the people saying so far this morning?
Rock wants Brock Bowers in round 1. Alt and then Worthy is what Shannon wants, which would be O-line, then wide receiver. Chris says wide receiver first at 7 overall. O-line in the first, only if it's alt, says Sports Fan. Left tackle in round 1, no matter what. Ashley wants the lineman in the first round. Jermel says take the wide receiver first. O-line, then wide receiver from Rooney. Wide receiver first, says Curtis. O-line first, says Manny. Alt, if he's there. Steven wants the O-line. James wants the O-line. Clayton wants the O-line. Deborah wants the O-line. So does Corey. J-Rome wants the wide receiver and says wide receiver because it's a deeper O-line class than wide receiver, like I said after the Super Bowl.
Time there. Because after the Senior Bowl, you talked about not being impressed with the wide receivers that were at the Senior Bowl, but the O-line at the Senior Bowl were better. Was that because there were some top wide receivers that were not in Mobile that we didn't get to see?
Yeah, I mean, sure, there was a lot of receivers not in Mobile, and we can pull up the list again right here. These are the top 10 wide receivers according to ESPN right now. Brian Thomas, Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, all not at the Senior Bowl. Xavier Worthy was not there. Keon Coleman was not there. Troy Franklin was not there. Adonai Mitchell was not there. I did see Ladd McConkey. I did see Xavier Legette, but only 2 of the top 10, according to ESPN, were in Mobile. So that could potentially play a factor if you are talking about the wide receiver depth. Now, I was not all that impressed with Xavier Legette at the Senior Bowl. I'm still not all that impressed with Xavier Legette, even after watching him run a 40. And I have some thoughts on these wide receivers. We'll get into it. Keeping with the chat, keep going back with the chat here. Somebody wants Neighbors in round 1. Danny wants an O-lineman first, so does Scott. Rox is take McConkey in round 2. Justin wants me drafted in round 1, which is a pretty good idea. Richie wants O-line.
Titans don't need a quarterback, O-line. Though. So
yeah, that's true. Well, they do need a backup quarterback. I'll go in like the 6th. I'll take that. So, Austin, feels like we're pretty split, which makes sense, right? We call it the combine coin flip for a reason. It feels like there are 2 philosophies that you can take coming into this draft right now. There does seem to be a ton of depth on the offensive line, but then as people point out, right, Xavier Worthy runs the 4.21 and breaks the record. And Ladd McConkey impressed people with his speed. Troy Franklin seems to be a legitimate wide receiver here. And so you have to start asking the question, as Rand Carthon brought up in his media availability, how can you best strategically play this for the Titans to come away with 2 really strong players? Is it wide receiver, O-line, or O-line, then wide receiver? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I bamboozled myself because this is a question that I came up with in our pre-show meeting, and I honestly am struggling with the answer because I think I'm approaching the point with the Titans draft that I feel confident that they're going to get a difference maker at 7 more often than not with how the board's going to fall. My one thing is, what are the LA Chargers and Jim Harbaugh going to do at 5? I think that is the true.
Is that a question?
Are they going to go?
Are we actually curious about that? I feel like that one's a fairly easy one.
What do you think the Chargers at this point, March 4th? What do you expect the Chargers to do at 5?
Offensive line.
So that's kind of what
and that seems to be the consensus. That seems to be what I heard most around the league, is that Harbaugh's going to stick and take offensive line.
And that adjusts my opinion drastically, because I've seen where the Chargers might take the best right tackle available at 5 instead of Joe Alt, who is a left tackle type prospect, because the Chargers have somebody that's fairly young, good player at left tackle, and you don't want to
Well,
necessarily have two,
Clayton
right?
says Clayton says they have Slater at left tackle. Well,
Right.
Joe Alt, if you're talking Joe Alt, discussed possibly playing right tackle in his media availability. I think he's
Sure,
open
of
to
course. Yeah, I think Joe Alt wants to go higher as possible because he gets just more money. But Slater at left tackle makes, or at least keeps the door open that maybe it's not Joe Alt at 5 because they need a right tackle. And look, maybe I don't know what's going to happen. But there's also the case, bless you, that the Chargers could cut one or two of their highly paid receivers this offseason. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen could be salary cap cuts. You only get one salary cap cuts in this offseason. And so if the Chargers walk away from Mike Williams and or Keenan Allen, does that mean they need somebody else to come in with Justin Herbert and go wide receiver at 5 after we assume Marvin Harrison Jr. goes 4 to Arizona? So I guess my official answer to this is Joe Alt is the only offensive lineman I would take at 7. And so I think my best combination would be for the Titans to go wide receiver at 7 and offensive line at 38. That is what I believe is the best combination the Titans can do, because I don't necessarily think Joe Alt's going to be there anymore.
Yeah. So I would actually probably agree that Joe Alt is not going to be there anymore. And I have been very firm on my stance that even if he is there, I think the Titans need to take a wide receiver at 7. Even if Joe Alt is there, I would take a wide receiver at 7 because you may be picking from wide receiver 2 over Joe Alt. And if you have your choice of a Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors, I would take that option over Joe Alt. And so a lot of people talk about the depth of the offensive line and the depth of wide receiver, but specifically look at the depth of this wide receiver room. And the chat was all on it, right? Saying, oh, take Xavier Worthy in the second round. I think a lot of these guys that I would be pumped about falling to the Titans in round 2, I just have a hard time seeing get there. I think more receivers are going to go in round 1 than most people think here. I think for sure you're looking at that first 4 coming off the board there in Harrison through Thomas. Xavier Worthy's going to go in the first round. That is what I have heard from a couple different people, that teams have him on their board and are prepared to pick him in the first round if he falls to them. So I do not expect him to get out of the first. I think you could also see Keon Coleman and Troy Franklin go at the back end of the first round. And I think we learn this every year. Guys sneak into the back end of the first round as wide receivers more often than they do any other position other than maybe like quarterback, because that 5th-year option that you can get by taking that guy in the first it is valuable. And so I think you're going to see a good number of wide receivers off the board by the time the Titans pick at 38. I think there is so much talent on this offensive line, at least so much raw talent that you could potentially trust Bill Callahan with developing. And I think the biggest thing for me, Austin, is the drop-off between the elite tier to the second tier, I think is more drastic for receivers than it is for offensive line. I believe there is a top 3 in this receiving core. And quite frankly, I look at Odunze, Neighbors, and Harrison, and every draft, right, when you talk about quarterbacks, right, you look at the top 4 quarterbacks in the draft, you kind of have to have this philosophy of, well, one of these guys is going to be bad. At least one isn't going to work out, right? Maybe 2, maybe 3. Like, there's a good chance. So you can't be all in on everybody because somebody's not going to work out.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens at wide receiver. Sometimes it doesn't happen. And I just have a really hard time not buying into Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, and Marvin Harrison Jr. all being really good receivers at the next level. I think they're all going to hit. I think they're all game-changing players and players that you want in your offense. And so
You know what it is? It's
Sure.
Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, and Devonta Smith.
Right.
Right. it's those three guys. All of them were studs coming out, and all of them are studs in the NFL.
Yeah, and so that is a group that I feel really good about all of them. People ask me, do you want Neighbors or Rome? And I'm like, I go Neighbors by like a hair, and I'm not upset if it's Rome Odunze at all. Like I think I'm happy with either one, and I think the difference between getting a Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, and getting a Lad McConkey, who could be a very good, fine wide receiver in the league. I don't think he's the difference maker those two guys are. I think that's a huge drop-off.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's the same thing if you're talking Olufashanu or Fashanu. Got to start learning how to say it correctly. If it's Olufashanu or whoever it is at 7, even a Joe Alt, that drop-off to that second tier of tackles, I'm not sure it's as cut and dry as it is at wide receiver.
All right, so I mentioned Malachi comes in and says the Corey Davis draft. All three of those receivers turned out to not be very good.
Yeah,
Corey Davis, Mike Williams, the best of the three, and the only one still playing in the NFL. And then John Ross ran very quickly and was quickly out of the league after his combine there too. So I think, and I said something earlier in the show, and I want to go deeper into it, that Joe Alt is the only offensive lineman that I would take at 7th overall. So I want to go deeper into that because I find the offensive line transition and something I heard from an NFL insider this morning that made me go, that's interesting. I want to ask Sam what he thinks about that, of why Joe Alt's the only offensive lineman I would take at 7 here in a second. But first, Sam, tell everybody about the Bone and Joint Institute.
The Bone and Joint Institute is the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Whenever you get hurt in life, you don't want to fumble on your recovery, and you have to know who to trust. You can trust our friends over at the Bone and Joint Institute. They have a state-of-the-art rehab facility located out in Franklin with everything you need for your recovery all in one place. So there's no driving everywhere in Middle Tennessee to get to your different appointments. They have clinic, rehab, imaging, surgery, testing all in one spot out in Franklin. Go visit our friends at the Bone and Joint Institute and schedule an appointment with them at boneandjointtn.org.
BetMGM, you can always win big with the BetMGM app. Yeah, Sam, you nailed it earlier. It's March, baby. I had a great college hoops parlay at plus 300 yesterday. Add a little Belmont Bruin action in there on a Sunday evening to cash that plus 300 parlay on BetMGM with college hoops. It's the right time to join with college basketball. You've got a lot of tournaments happening and starting this week in conference tournaments, next week with conference tournaments before we get to the big dance coming up here in a couple of weeks. So get locked in with BetMGM and use our bonus code ATOZ Sports. That's ATOZ Sports when you sign up with a BetMGM app. So you can get your first bet up to $1,500 back if that first bet misses. That's up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. So go big with it so you don't have to go home, and BetMGM can keep on playing all college hoops season long. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 or older. Tennessee only new customer offer. Offers all promotions are subject to qualification and eligible requirements. First online rule Monday wager only. Rewards issued eligible bonus bets. Bonus bets expiring 7 days. And for public game sport, call Tennessee Red Line 800-889-9789. So Sam, I think Joe Alt's the only offensive lineman I would take at 7th overall because of the injury of the quad to Fashanu, who struggled to stay healthy quite often at Penn State. And then I heard Peter Schrager on NFL Network Good Morning Football this morning, a clip they posted on social, where he was talking about how good this offensive line class is. And I'm going to play this here in a second, but it wasn't the number of offensive linemen that could go in the first round. It's the name mentioned next to Joe Alt from Peter Schrager on Good Morning Football.
I've got 12 different offensive linemen who could go in the first round this year. There are so many offensive line needy teams. There are some studs, though. Those two top guys, Alt and Fuaga, they are potential all-pro types. This Joe Alt comes in at 6'8" and runs like the wind. Fuaga tattooed up rat tail, just a beast out there. This is Guyton out of Oklahoma, who just runs like the wind. I've been covering the league a long time. I was down on the field. I was watching them. You can see me in the suit in the background there. These guys just seem smoother, faster, better athletes than we've ever had before. There are so many of them. So I just named all those different players, right? I asked our research, Rich Goldberg, I said, every single one of them, whether it's Fuaga or whether it's Fuanu, all these players, how many are the most ever drafted in a first round? 5 is the most. I think we blow that number out of the water this year. It's that deep a class, that good. And as much as we love, is it going to be Daniels or May or Daniels, who's a second quarterback taken? Alt or Fuaga is like where I'm at right now.
Right. So that one, the fact that there's only been maximum 5 offensive linemen taken the first round surprised me. That was a crazy stat. But I mean, what did you think about Peter Schrager saying Alt or Fuaga? Because there's a lot of names on this list, and Talisi Fuaga out of Oregon State being up there in the conversation with Joe Alt as the top offensive lineman. I hadn't seen that. I know James Foster is high growing on Fuaga, and he's somebody who's climbing. But, I mean, before it was Alt, Fashanu, and then you had J.C. Latham out of Alabama as the third guy. Then you've got Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. Jackson Powers Johnson, the center out of Oregon, is a stud that people love. But now it's all of a sudden not Fashanu or not Guyton, not Mims from Georgia, but it's Alt or Fuaga up there at the top. Did that surprise you like it did me? I hear it coming from Peter Schrager.
I think Fuaga is a name that has gained a lot of steam because, right, what did we talk about with the Combine and with the Senior Bowl and what we use this time for? It's really to affirm the tape. And I think there was a lot of interesting tape on Talise Fuaga, and teams have started to check him out in person and have it affirmed. He had a really, really good week at the Senior Bowl. He had a really, really good week here in Indianapolis. He interviewed very well. He spoke to the media very well. And then you just look at the sheer athleticism of him that he shows, like Peter Schrager talks about. And I think he's starting to gain some steam where I would expect him to go certainly before J.C. Latham, and maybe even rivaling that offensive tackle 2 spot, especially if you're a team that is looking for more of a swing tackle, right? I think he can do both very well. And you pull up this list, Austin. Where's that list of offensive linemen? Here it is. Again, Troy Fautanu is another name that is trending in the right direction. And it's wild to me because this is 12 offensive linemen. And who does this list not include? I mean, this doesn't include Kingsley Sawamatia. I think that's how you say it. I'm messing that up.
Boy, Patrick Paul.
BYU. My guy, Patrick Paul out of Houston. 2 guys that aren't even on this list. And you're looking at 12 offensive linemen. And as Peter Schrager said, or as they showed on that graphic, 5 is the most taken in the first round. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to see if I'm making a decision at number 7 overall of realistically, you've got half of these guys to choose from at 38, and you're adding a couple other guys in the mix here. So
there's a lot of interior guys here, though, right? Like Barton, Bordolini. Yeah, I believe Frazier is also interior.
Yeah, JPJ is interior as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, you do have Fautanu, Mims, Jordan Morgan, Fashanu, sorry, to Olu Fashanu for getting that wrong again. Joe Alt, Fuaga, Guyton. So I mean, you have at least 7 tackles here that, and a couple other ones that I didn't name. And if you're talking about 5 offensive linemen is the most to ever go in the first round, I mean, that's the depth that we're talking about. That's the type of depth that you're talking about in this draft class that makes you able to say, let's take the shot on the high-end receiving talent. Let's go and say, Malik Neighbors, come on down. Let's go get Will Levis, his guy, and trust Bill Callahan to get the absolute most out of 1 or 2 of these offensive line prospects.
All right, so Sam, here's another question. Of these 10 receivers, and this is this from ESPN.com or NFL.com?
Yeah, this is the ESPN rankings.
ESPN ranking top 10 receivers. How many do you think are, all but guaranteed first-round selections of these 10?
5.
5 are guaranteed. I think it's the top
Guaranteed.
4, obviously.
I think 5 are guaranteed, but I think more will go. I just think 5 are guaranteed.
All right. I think it's the top 4. Then I think it's AD Mitchell is probably the next one. I don't think Leggett is going to be a guarantee. I would think Mitchell.
Worthy's going to go in the first. So I think you've got.
I would add 6.
So yeah, maybe it is 6, right? I think Troy Franklin, I think absolutely is going to go in the first round. Maybe he's not a guarantee, but I think somebody's going to take a chance on him in the 20s. I think you could say the same thing. I think probably one of Coleman or Leggett go, and then one of them is probably there at the start. And let's remember too, Austin, though, that the Titans, it's not like, hey, if a guy survives day 1, they're available for them on day 2, right? There's still 6 picks or whatever there is afterwards that guys have to survive and play. Positions like wide receiver are often a position that somebody survives day 1 and the team goes, you know what, let's go get the guy at 33 or 35 overall, right? And so there's a chance that we're sitting here at the end of day 1 being like, ooh, hey, Keon Coleman is still on the board, but does he make it to 38? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Panthers picking very high, 33, but who don't have a first-round pick, so that could be a receiver for sure. Could be an offensive lineman. So I think that's where I say I'm with you. I think both of us aligned. I'd say go wide receiver first round, offensive line second round. That is the best combo the Titans can make in this draft. And it's tough, man, because I just think Joe Alt feels good. I like Joe Alt a lot. I came into the combine of like, okay, what's going to happen with Joe Alt? Is he going to remain number 1? Is he going to separate himself? Is he going to not test as well? But the way I saw Joe Alt run, I was like, that guy's big, long, and he's smooth and fast. I like the way that he looked as a really tall tackle and how he was able to bend. I think there's a lot of like concerns about how can you bend if you're over 6'6" or something. Do you bend at your back or your hips, or do you bend at your knees and waist? And I think Joe Alt bent in the right way to where it keeps his balance and his strength. And that's a type of athleticism that's just really hard to overcome if you don't have it. So I like Joe Alt a lot. There's a drop off for me after Joe Alt. If Fuaga is a really good player, that's the Chargers, right? The Chargers take Fuaga at 5 after he continues to climb, because they've got Slater right there at left tackle. And then I think that's the only way that Joe Alt makes it to the Titans at 7.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I have a hard time seeing Joe Alt get to 7, to be honest with you. I think he's a slam dunk. Like, I think he's on most teams' board, probably maybe even every team's board, the top offensive tackle. I think he is OT1 in this class, and to think that 6 picks are going to go by without an offensive lineman getting taken, I think is really optimistic. Like, it's, wishful thinking a little bit on the part of Titans fans. It's hard to get the top offensive tackle in a class with the 7th overall pick. Not that it's impossible. I don't know if this draft board is going to play out that way. You're definitely going to get 3 quarterbacks at the top, probably a wide receiver at 4. The best case scenario for the Titans would be that the Giants take a quarterback at 6, or somebody trades into 6 overall for J.J. McCarthy, which I've heard a little bit of buzz that could be a reality, because if that happens, you now have the choice of wide receiver 2 at 7. But I think it's hard to see Joe Alt getting that far in the draft.
Yeah, I agree. A to Z Sports are live on this Monday. Make sure you hit that like button. We need way more likes. We got a lot of people watching the show Monday after the combine. Sam's been at the Indianapolis combine. So make sure you hit that like button if you're watching on Facebook and on YouTube. I do see a super chat coming from Sam the Man, and I'll toss this to you, Sam. Are you concerned with Alt's footwork during drills? I did not see anything that stood out.
No, yeah, not particularly. I think you said it best, Austin. He can move a little bit. He showed me and everybody, and was hoping to show that how well he can bend. And I think he's just big enough that he can anchor, right? And those are some of the things that you're looking for in a left tackle. He didn't run as fast as some of the, he didn't jump as far or, have the best 3-cone as like a Fautanu or Fashanu or a Fuaga or whoever. But I think what he got to 14 miles an hour in his first 10 yards of his
5
40,
yards
or 5
first
yards.
5 yards.
Got some pretty explosive speed, got good length, and really, really good size where I'm not all that worried about the footwork. I think he can excel in pass protection. I really like Joe Alt. Like you said, he feels good. Nice. Like if the Titans came away with Joe Alt, I wouldn't necessarily be upset by it. Like, I think it's a really good player at a huge position of need. That's a slam dunk to me. That's a good pick. I think you might be able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and I'm trying to, maybe get the best of both worlds. And that involves taking a receiver in my book.
So you mentioned Joe Alt got to 14.14 miles per hour in his first 5 yards on his 40. I saw this stat, and this was running backs. Jalen Wright out of Tennessee had the top speed of running backs in his first 5 yards in the last 2 combines at 15.18. Devon A-Chain, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chase Brown, these running backs from last year that came out of the combine, Keaton Mitchell, were in the mid to high 14 miles per hour in their first 5 yards of the 40. Joe Alt was over 14 miles per hour in his first 5 yards. That is insane. At 321 pounds, 6'8" plus, that is stupid. Like, that is an incredible amount of explosiveness and twitch, athleticism that I was not expecting.
Yeah.
Like,
when you start thinking about, sorry, go ahead.
I was like, what is a high-end speed for somebody like that? But my God, 14 miles per hour within 5 yards, it just is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, a guy who can get off the ball well, a guy who can pull, a guy who can do a lot of different things for your run game, as well as being able to anchor from left tackle spot. It really important. All of those reasons, though, I don't know how he's there at 7. I don't. I don't know how somebody passes on him. If you're going to take an offensive tackle, I think he's the first option you have to go to.
All right, A to Z Sports here live on this Monday morning. Sam was in the NFL Combine up in Indianapolis for the last 5 or 6 days. I'm going to ask him his biggest takeaway from the NFL Combine, his first one, covering it for A to Z Sports.com. But first, tell everybody about our great partners at Farm Bureau Health Plans. They've been serving you, the Tennessean, for over 75 years. So much has changed across the state of Tennessee during that time, but Farm Bureau Health Plans has remained consistent in how they go after their coverage and how they invest in their community like you, because you are the community. You are what makes the state of Tennessee special, the people here, and making sure that you have the right health coverage, the right plan possible for your family, your situation. If you're single out there on your own, independent contractor, maybe an entrepreneur, it's really hard to have trustworthy health coverage that is strong, that you can rely on in a time of need, not when Farm Bureau Health Plans comes around. So you can get started by getting a quote at fbhp.com/ATOZ with Farm Bureau Health Plans.
Today's show powered by BetMGM. It's March, baby. Welcome to March. January, February, March, and this is the best month to bet. I love betting in March more than any other month. We got some good hoops coming down the horizon. Actually, fun fact, conference tournaments in college basketball begin today. The Atlantic Sun tournament begins today. Watch out for your Lipscomb Bisons, maybe making a little bit of a baby run here in the Atlantic Sun tournament. It's going to be a fun month loaded with electric games to bet on, and do it with the king of sportsbooks. Do BetMGM. Use the bonus code ATOZ Sports when you sign up and get up to $1,500 back in the form of a bonus bet if your first bet doesn't win. That's a second chance to win big. We all need a second chance in March because it's unpredictable. You can lose bets that you've got full confidence in, and there's a lot of heartbreak. So if you get a second chance, it's the best way to do it. Bonus code ATOZ Sports when you sign up for up to $1,500 in bonus bets at BetMGM.com.
All right, so Sam, your first NFL combine as an NFL reporter covering the Titans. What was your biggest takeaway from your time in Indianapolis, covering and seeing the league operate in Indy day and night? Because I know it's a long 6 days.
Yeah, I mean, can I get some clarity on takeaway here? Are we looking at the Titans? Are we looking at the league? Are we looking at the players? What do we
That would be up to you, because I wanted it broad for a reason. I'm curious, your biggest takeaway from Indianapolis, what comes to mind first?
I think when you talk about the Titans with people from around the league, the first thing that everybody mentions is the fact that they've got the right head coach. People are in, people are out on Will Levis. It seems to be a bit of a toss-up. There seems to be some confusion about Ran Carthon. People say, hey, love the guy, see how he is as a general manager, wait and see. But the one thing that seems to be consistent across the board is that Brian Callahan is the right head coach, and that if Will Levis doesn't pan out, if for some reason this offense doesn't work, it's not going to be because of Brian Callahan. That is the first thing that comes to mind when you start saying, hey, what do you feel about, hey, what's going on in Tennessee right now, to people around the league. As far as the Titans are concerned, and my takeaway from what I heard from Titans people at the Combine, both in media availability and away from it, I do believe, like we just talked about, wide receiver seems to be where I think they're going to go at 7. That is a very big takeaway that I have, and I know it's a smokescreen season, but I do get the vibe that acquiring playmakers and guys that score touchdowns is going to be very high on Brian Callahan and Ran Carthon's list of on their to-do list, right? That's at the very top right now of finding a way to build a sustained offense that starts with an explosive passing game, which requires an explosive wide receiver that has contract stability over the next 4 to 5 years. So those are some main takeaways. It is a crazy, crazy week. It's very hard to put into words to people who haven't experienced it before. But yeah, you walk into a bar and picture, you do a 360, you can see 8 NFL head coaches like standing in their different pockets of the room. So there's a lot of information flying and a lot you can learn about how teams view certain players, how they viewed certain players and coaches in the past, and what they expect moving forward.
Why do we think that Brian Callahan's so well liked across the league?
I think people have a lot of respect for what the Cincinnati operation has done, and for how they have created such a sustained offensive approach, where you even see them like winning games and scoring a lot of points with Jake Browning last year. I think that's a pretty well-oiled machine. He's somebody who has bided his time, who is a very, very straight up guy. That was another thing I was told about Brian Callahan by everybody I spoke with, was great dude, super straight up, will tell you like it is, doesn't do any of the rah-rah coaching stuff that you see sometimes, where he's not going to walk into a locker room and bang himself on the chest and be ready to run through a brick wall or smash a table at the thought of winning a football game. He's just going to talk to you like a normal person. He's going to be very honest with you. He's very intelligent. I think in today's NFL, with a modern player, with a modern style of football, I think that resonates with people very well. And so I think Brian Callahan is like leaves a good impression on everybody he works with.
And I think that's really impressive. He's been around the block for a while. Somebody, Sean, says pedigree and personality of the answer to that. And I think that's kind of what Sam explained in just a couple of words there of being born into the NFL and knowing how it operates all the way up and earning his time, not being the Nepo baby that a lot of people assume that he is, and not working for his dad until he hired his dad. And so
Never
I
worked
think
for his dad in the NFL. Like,
or college, right?
Sure. And hey,
Never worked for his
connections
dad.
do matter. Connections do help you get opportunities elsewhere. But Brian Callahan did something very unique as well, of sticking out two horrific seasons in Cincinnati. One where they got the first overall pick, then that first overall pick gets hurt and they're terrible again, and they get another top 5 pick, I believe it was. I believe they picked 5th the next year, and they took Jamar Chase. And luckily, the Bengals had enough patience to allow Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan and that staff to stay together and see it through. But he has been through the bad, has been through the good of playing in a Super Bowl and being 90 seconds or whatever it was from winning a Super Bowl. And he has seen the ability to turn over a roster into one of the elite AFC contenders. And so he's been through the ringer as an offensive coordinator. And I think a lot of people believe he's going to bring that same mentality, patience, and just steadiness to the Titans. It may not come in year one. It may not happen right away. But I think Brian Callahan is well equipped to build this thing over the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Sam, so did you favorite a chat in the comments today?
I might have.
I didn't do it.
Oh, I did favor this from Brian. I want to see what you think about this idea.
Yeah.
An A to Z mock draft with the chat might be an interesting show.
We can do that. I mean, in the past, we've done, usually Zach and I, the week of the draft, do a live mock. But I think we could do that, and maybe we can do one. Hell, I'm down to do one this week post combine. Maybe that's something we can do later on the week, and then see how that goes. Then we can do it again after the first big wave of free agency, maybe at the first week of April, and then we can do it again the week of the draft. So I'm always down. You know what's crazy? I have not done a mock draft simulator yet. Which is wild for me.
Well, don't do the mock draft simulators. Don't do that.
But it's something. It's an exercise. It's an exercise that allows me to kind of see how things play out in other simulation tools. It's just that's all it is. So I think we can absolutely do that. I'm down with that.
I would be down too. I think it would be fun to get a feel for it, and maybe this is what we need, right, to help the chat kind of see what I feel like I'm trying to explain a little bit. But like, if we do a real mock, I think we can create a scenario where we begin to realize what will and won't be there at the end of the first round. And maybe that helps form our opinions a little bit more about where we think the Titans should go with that 7th pick.
Yep. I like it a lot. I like it quite a bit, actually. We'll get to that later on. Sam, it is now time for the age game, the Monday age game. I hold the keys to the age game today. But first, quick shout out to our friends at Wilson County Hyundai. Make them a part of your new car buying process. Go see them in Lebanon or check them out online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. So for the age game today, usually the age game is based off of some type of current event. This one is unfortunate because longtime NFL reporter from ESPN, Chris Mortensen, passing away on Sunday morning at the age of 72. We don't know exactly what the cause of his passing was, but know that he had been battling throat cancer for the last 7 to 8 years. He retired from ESPN at the end of last draft, but passing away Sunday at the age of 72. Chris Mortensen, somebody that I'm sure everybody watching this show right now or listening to us grew up through your NFL fandom, listening to things that Chris Mortensen said on Sunday morning on NFL Countdown before watching 8 hours of football. And Chris Mortensen all played a role in our fandom growing up, whether you're Sam's age, my age, or somebody way older than me. He crossed generations of doing this at ESPN for the last 33 years it was. And so rest in peace to Chris Mortensen. But Sam, the age game today, and this is a race. Be quick, but don't hurry. And Sam, you have to hide the chat. There are two people that I associate with Chris Mortensen. One is Adam Schefter. Without Chris Mortensen, there's no Adam Schefter. But the other name at ESPN that I associate Chris Mortensen with is Chris Berman. Boomer. Without Googling. No Googling. Who is the fastest? How old is Chris Berman?
Sneaky old is my first inkling here. I will say he is 71.
71 is your answer.
Yeah, it was between 68 and 71, but I'm going to say 71.
Okay. All right, you're going to go with 71. I'm trying to scroll back up to the top of the chat. How old is Chris Berman? Rumbling, bumbling, stumbling. Yep, boomer, Chris Berman. Let's see. I see Orlando says 67. Patrick says 74. Roy says 78. Man, this was one of the fastest we've had correct, because I had to go out of order because I didn't want to get the age game over with too soon. Titans Kyle, the second answer is correct. 68. You picked one side of the coin for the Titans draft, but the wrong side of the coin on your Chris Berman age guess. Titans Kyle nailed it. 68 on YouTube. That was the second fastest answer overall and the first correct.
Yeah, I should have gone with, I was like, hey, 68 or 71. I don't know why I was between those two. I just had a feeling between those two. He was either like approaching 70 or just hit 70. Went the wrong way. That stinks.
Yeah. David Brown was right on his heels by seconds, guessing 68 there. Stephen King also guessed 68. So did Rooney. It was a pretty popular answer, William Morris, but not fast enough. You got to be quick, but you got to be right. All right there. So shout out to Titans Kyle. By the way, it's March, which means we are creating our age game leaderboard, Sam. So Titans Kyle is the first name to go on the age game leaderboard, which means we will have a graphic created next week that updates our age game champions, as Zach Bingham says. And of course, we all know the prize for getting the age game correct is 4% off all of our merch at shop.atozsportsnashville.com. So make sure you check that out. Sam, great show today. I know you've got plenty of content planned for atozsports.com. I feel like we've gone through a couple articles just in this show already. There's also a report out there about the Titans' level of interest in a free agent that is no longer a free agent, that I'm sure we'll have content up there at atozsports.com. But great show today. No Titans at 2 today. You need to get a rest day in, right? It's a rest day for Sam.
I've been a trooper this morning with so no Titans at 2 today. This is going to help me recover quickly.
Yeah, some hot tea maybe and a warm towel around your neck so Sam can recover from the combine. But great show for everybody. Make sure you hit that like button on the way out the door. Buck Rising will be live tonight at 8 o'clock Central Time. Again, like the show before you go on Facebook, on YouTube. That goes a long way for us. So hit the like button, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow morning on a Tuesday. Appreciate it as always.